Good afternoon. Thank you and welcome everyone to our Research Connect series. I am Charles Cook, a CDTRP PFD partner. I'll be facilitating today's webinar. I'm a two-time transplant recipient. I received my heart in 2016 and I received my kidney in 2017. I joined CDTRP last fall. First, I would like to acknowledge that the CDTRP is hosted by the University of Alberta, which is located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others, whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. I'm joining the call from Kitchener, Ontario, which is Haldimand Treaty territory and the traditional home of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Neutral people. I encourage you to write your land acknowledgement in the chat box. We would also like to acknowledge Astellas, Takeda, and AstraZeneca, without whose generous support we would not be able to host these sessions. The CDTRP also relies on the generous support of our community. Your gift ensures we can focus on delivering our mission of supporting excellence in donation and transplantation research. There will be a link in the chat box for those that are interested. Before I introduce the speakers, I have a few housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on the CDTRP website and YouTube channel. During the presentation, we encourage you to keep your cameras on, but we kindly request that you keep your mics off. And if you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand with the raise hand button. I am pleased to be introducing our presenters, Mrs. Alicia Murdoch and Melanie Talson. Alicia is a certified clinical research professional with over 12 years of clinical research experience. Prior to joining Cansolve CKD, she worked as a research coordinator, review manager at a research ethics board, and ethics and regulatory coordinator. Her past employment experiences have given her a wide breadth of knowledge about the research process. In her current role as a Cansolve CKD Network project manager, she is responsible for the Canadian Nephrology Trials Network and Cansolve CKD Network Pediatric Committee, helping these core infrastructures move their initiatives and ideas forward in the pursuit of improving the lives of those affected by chronic kidney disease. Melanie is a second-year PhD student in medical anthropology and holds a master's degree from the University of Victoria. She has been involved in health promotion research since 2003, and specifically kidney health-related research since 2018. As an experienced qualitative researcher with a passion for patient engagement and participatory action research, she puts a strong emphasis on patients as co-creators of knowledge. Melanie believes in the critical importance of conducting research with people, not on people, and is delighted to be working with the network to continue to support patient-oriented research. We are all very excited for your presentation. I hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you everybody for having us. So like Charles said, I'm Alicia, and I'm going to be presenting today with Melanie. Oh, I should probably share my screen. There we go. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Cansolve CKD network and the roles and resources for patient partners that we have developed. This is us. Thank you, Charles, for the great introduction. So I'd like to start us off with a land acknowledgement. So I would like to acknowledge that I'm presenting today from the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. That includes the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations in what is now considered, now known as Vancouver. And on a national level, Cansolve CKD encourages Canadians to learn about the Indigenous peoples of the lands in which they live, work, and visit. We as Canadians, in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, respect the self-determination of First Nations, Métis, and Inuits, and their rights and responsibilities in cultures, languages, and the pursuit of wellness. So for some of you who may not know Cansolve CKD, since I know that this is not, a disease-specific, CDTRP is not a disease-specific network. So we are a kidney-focused, patient-oriented research network that was primarily funded by a grant from the Canadian government strategy for patient-oriented research, known as SPORE. Phase 1 started in 2016. It consisted of 18 projects within 3 themes that were identifying kidney disease early, developing better treatments, and delivering innovative patient-centered care. So all those projects were developed and had patient partners on the research teams. Phase 1 was a 5-year grant, but because of COVID, we were offered an extension. So we're just kind of wrapping up right now, phase 1. Phase 2, we just received the grant. We were just awarded the grant late in the fall of 2022 for phase 2, and that will start this year. And that focuses on the implementation of the phase 1 project's knowledge. And so in addition to the projects, Cansolve CKD also had a clear objective to support, mentor, and train its network members, include patient partners and clinicians, in patient-oriented research. So there was the research training and mentorship committee was formed, and through priority setting exercises, a list of potential gaps in education were formed and were identified. And then the resources that we will be sharing with you today are primarily the result of the work of that committee over the past 5 years. We've also hosted many webinars over the years and continue to do so. So you can subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on Twitter to hear upcoming webinars. They're not all kidney specific. Many of them are just patient-oriented research and patient engagement focused. And as well, we have a YouTube channel where you can see all our past webinars.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Melanie Talson, and thank you again, Charles, for the really nice introduction. And I'm here co-presenting with Alicia. So you'll just see us kind of toss the ball back and forth, and we're kind of co-presenting slide after slide. So there might be a little bit of a back and forth, almost like watching a tennis match or something. But hopefully there's some coherence.
Not too much, hopefully.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for having us here today. And I hope that this helps your network understand some of the roles of patient partners and also some of the resources that we can have to offer for you, and also resources that you may be interested in developing for your networks. So I see some familiar faces here because I have actually been involved on a Cansolve research project for I think the last 3 or 4 years with Hans, and then also with Manuel now with Mind the Gap. Anyway, and now I've kind of moved into this role of patient partnerships and capacity building manager with Cansolve. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I was just thinking about how are patient partners involved? Like, what are the roles? And my research brain went straight to, okay, patient-oriented research. We have our researcher, or we have our patients as partners, as co-creators in knowledge, as collaborative team members involved in all stages of research, and really, us helping us and us helping them. And we work really collaboratively and really thinking about how to engage patients at truly all levels and really making it like an iterative process. And then I had to step back and think, okay, but what are you guys looking for? So you're really looking at, I'm assuming, more of how our patient partners involved at a network level, so that higher level. And so this is really my new role in thinking about this too. So I hope that this presentation can provide you with some of that information. But basically, for the network, we have patient partners also involved in every stage and really as guides. So they help, as we have this like nice little pictograph here that kind of illustrates patients at the center. So they're at the center of the network and they're involved in all stages of the research at the project level and also in guiding research at the network level. So we have established a patient governance circle, which is comprised of about 15 or so members of a larger patient network. And they kind of speak on behalf of all of the patient partners on all matters of the network. So with the network, there's obviously research projects all across the country with their own patient partners. And that's what we refer to as like the larger patient network. But then from this patient governance circle, we have just a smaller unit of a group of people who can speak on behalf of the larger patient network. Oh yeah, and something else to mention too, that they're not necessarily only patients. So we refer to them as patient partners, but they can also be caregivers of people who have like their loved ones or whatever who have the illness, in this case, kidney disease. And so we have this nice collaboration coming from people with the lived experience of the disease, people with the lived experience of caregiving for their loved ones who have had the disease, and also recognizing that their lived experience is valuable, but also not the end all of their involvement. So they're bringing in their skills and experience from their other realms of life. So just remembering that it's not just their lived experience with the disease that matters as their involvement. I have some notes here. Let's see what else I wanted to say. We also have, so I'll just mention that the Patient Governance Circle meets quarterly and they provide input and guidance on all aspects of Can-SOLVE, so of the research network, from setting priorities to supporting patient engagement in the collection and communication of research evidence. So you'll see further on down the slide that we talk about knowledge translation, and that's a really big role for patient partners in research in that KT aspect. Also, we have an Indigenous Peoples Engagement and Research Council, IPERC, which helps to guide the network's activities and accounting for patient-oriented research involving First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So this helps us use this ethical framework that encompasses the principles, of ownership, control, access, and possession, so OCAP, and the elements of participatory research. And so IPERC's mandate is to ensure that the Can-SOLVE network appropriately incorporates, addresses, and respects the unique needs and perspectives of Indigenous peoples. So the members of the council include patients and also caregivers, knowledge keepers, health professionals, and federal provincial decision makers. So there's stakeholders at all levels there. And let's see. And then I'll just put this next slide over to Alicia.
Thanks, Melanie. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like the opportunities that we have within Can-SOLVE. So, while the network has been around for several years, people may think, well, then there's no real place for me because you've already established all your groups and committees, but there's always new opportunities and new ways for people to get involved. So we have our longer term committees that are usually have like a 2 to 4 year term, although some people looking at you, Hans, have been involved in for a lot longer in things like our network steering committee, research operations, pediatrics, the training and mentorship, and the knowledge users and knowledge translation. But not everybody has the time and capacity to dedicate to one of these longer term committees. And this coming from Melanie and I are both working moms, and we know that not everybody has that extra time to commit to another endeavor. We always have lots of short-term commitments within Can-SOLVE, and I know within other networks, they're trying to build new things and trying to help support patients getting involved, and as well as supporting the researchers as they push to this new way of doing research. So some of the short-term committees that we have had recently, we did a redevelopment of Kidneylink, which is our online platform that we're going to talk about a little bit later. The development of our learning modules, those are usually 6 to 9 months, and I have one ongoing right now, and Sandra, who I see here, and Hans are part of that. We developed industry engagement guidelines, and so we had patient partners be involved in that, and that was less than 6 months. And then we always have our annual meeting planning, because I think because we feel it's important to have the patient's input, obviously as participants in the meeting, as well as partners in our research, to be a part of the planning of our meeting. And as Melanie alluded to, these people are not just those with lived experience. They are, some of them are social media managers, they are journalists, they are event planners in, you know, their current or previous roles. So they're coming with a lot of other experiences. And so I just want to, you know, put it out that sometimes some of these networks, maybe some of the other networks that you work with, or some of the other groups you work with, may just need a nudge sometimes to say, hey, if you're working on something, I would love to give my input. You don't always, it doesn't always have to be, I think sometimes from the network, from the researcher's point of view, we try sometimes not to burden the patients too much, or and I think that that is kind of a paternalistic view, obviously, but also one in which is an opportunity to step forward and say, hey, I would love to give my feedback on this pamphlet I saw, which I don't really think is as engaging as you could make it. So I think there's lots of opportunities for patients to get involved in other ways, and I think that's something that we have learned along the past 6 years within Cansolve, is that every decision and every pamphlet, every presentation can be enriched by getting the input and the support, and, you know, even the writing of it. I co-wrote the one of the webinars I'll talk about later with Hans Forster. So there's always opportunities, but I think that sometimes people who are coming into groups or coming into patient-oriented research maybe just need a little nudge to help them understand and learn the value in bringing in the patients, even for some of those what may seem insignificant or minute details, you know, especially when it comes to writing a pamphlet, but could make a huge impact in how it is received by the population. And I'll hand it back over to Melanie.
Thank you. So this learning tree was developed before I came on board to Cansolve, but it's a fabulous resource that was developed to support patient engagement within the network. And you can see this beautiful picture here that kind of outlines what it is. Basically, we have these 5 R's at the bottom: relevance, responsibility, respect, reciprocity, and reflection. So the idea of having those down here is just to sort of symbolize that all of the learning tree elements have been rooted in those 5 key areas. And so these particular programs, we have this learning, it's all built along this learning pathway, and they cover a wide range of subjects, from knowledge translation to Indigenous cultural safety. And so it's like a suite of training programs, and it's really to help the network members enhance their skills and knowledge in participating in research. So we also share this with any other networks that are, you know, looking for resources. So it's not just limited to the Cansolve network, but that was who it was built for in the beginning. So they have programs that are really forming the branches of this learning tree. And these learnings were all based on what the needs were. So they conducted in 2017, a survey was conducted to identify the greatest training needs in patient-oriented kidney research specifically. And these were all identified as key areas. And then the next part of the presentation will just be going through each of those programs more specifically. And I think, it's over to you, Alicia.
So I'm just going to talk a minute about, so this is actually the only part of the learning tree that is kidney specific. And even within this module, it's not all kidney related. So it could be of use to anybody who is maybe new and wants to understand, like it's really meant to help people understand the foundational aspects of research in Canada. So Kidney Pro is what we called it. It has its own website. It's just an online self-paced, so you just click through learning module to like I said, help people understand kidney research landscape and patient engagement in Canada. So it aims to support patient engagement in studies as both partners in the research as well as research participants to help you understand what that role is. We're hoping that it will empower people to take part more meaningfully and actively as research partners. We have little integrated quizzes inside there, just make it a little more fun. There's 3 broad topics that are covered in there. So one is the research landscape, patient engagement and research, and then going forward. So research landscape is really more broad, talking about how research is funded in Canada, some of the research process. So that is all very not disease specific. And then it also talks a little bit about the different types of kidney research that are being currently conducted. The patient engagement section really focuses on describing patient roles in research as a participant or as a partner and what that difference is. As well as because Indigenous peoples are disproportionately affected by chronic kidney disease. There's an Indigenous patient partners section that reviews the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and barriers that affect their access to care and ways to integrate Indigenous perspectives and patient partners into your research. And lastly, there's like a going forward section, and that is just filled with resources for people who want to learn more on a specific topic or what that was brought up within there, or other links to other research networks that have other learning resources about patient engagement, as well as some sites where people can go to learn how they can get involved in research in their area. Really?
Yeah, so I'll just speak a little bit here about the Storytelling for Impact course, which was developed basically, I think, with the idea of how empowering it can be for someone to share their own story, but also to provide just the skills to be able to tell the story in an impactful and clear way. So this is actually an 8-week long program where patients and their caregivers can participate in a program to help them learn how to tell their story. So I think it has happened. I'm not sure how many times this has actually run, but I know of one in particular that happened with a cohort of people. And so they were able to have this peer-to-peer interaction and support and this opportunity to get feedback as they're going through the program together. And so this is just something that has happened in an online format, I think, and it will be further developed as we go. But it has been really successful in helping people discover and develop and hone their story for the research environment. And it also, the premise is also to give participants the confidence to be able to tell that story to anyone, anywhere. And so there's a storytelling coach that will lead this small group of peers through the process of creating an impactful story. And then there's also a handbook that we've created to help people work through that process of finding and also refining their story. And I think that's probably all I have to say about that. But I think we will maybe even hear about this. I'm not sure if we will. But anyway, this is an excellent program. And one more aspect to mention is that we'll be working towards having it sort of like a train the trainer. And there'll be a train the trainer aspect to it where people who have gone through the storytelling program will then be able to become storytelling coaches. And so there's also that educational component and development. Okay, and I think this is still me.
Still
Okay.
you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so then there's also this patient engagement toolkit, which is available to patient partners in the network, but also to others, and it's really related to patient engagement in any health research. And so basically this was developed out of the need as we saw patients and researchers beginning to work together more and more. There was really a need for more practical tools to support these collaborations. Basically it goes through topics like effective communication and identifying common goals, and also defining the roles for patients. So as we mentioned before, that there's a whole host of skills that patients come with, not just their lived experience with the disease. So identifying what those skills are, and also defining the roles in terms of how patients want to be involved. So maybe there are aspects of involvement that that you might assume they want to be involved in, or whatever it is. So it's best to get those kind of roles outlined and defined initially, and in the early stages of the research. So it also includes tips for collaboration in patient engagement, and even a glossary of terms. So again, speaking to this knowledge translation piece, obviously there's a lot of research language and health related language and stuff, and even team collaboration language. So having that glossary of terms is really useful. And then just practical tools to support the internal functioning of the teams. So a skills and contributions chart, again, is a really useful aspect to the toolkit in supporting that effective collaboration, and also in supporting that really feeling like you have this collaborative but also contributive aspect to your role. And let's see who's next here. Oh, this is me again. Okay, so then going back to the next slide, next slide here, knowledge translation principles. So this is just a part of the learning tree that involves creating and applying knowledge in ways that maximize the effectiveness of health services and products. So how to distill those key messages from an academic publication and communicate it using plain language. And so this module is an online self-paced program that provides the learner with practical tips on how to summarize key messages from an academic publication, and then how to communicate that information using plain language. So it will allow the learner to better communicate information in a clear and concise way, and as well as perfect an elevator pitch. So that's always the tricky part, right? How to distill this big research project down to a 1 or 2 sentence plain language description. So this knowledge translation online module helps to provide that missing that really clear KT piece. Okay, and then just on to Alicia.
Thanks. So if you remember the image of the tree, the trunk was labeled as Wabijiki learning pathway. And so that's really the trunk of the tree, the base where all of the other branches come from. And as the name suggests, it is a pathway with learning markers along the way. The learning pathway consists of some existing resources, such as Sanya's Indigenous cultural safety, principles of OCAP, the ownership, control, access, and possession, as well as the Kairos blanket exercise. But then there are also original components that were developed here at Cansolve CKD with this learning pathway group, such as the Land Acknowledgement webinar series, the Indigenous Research Ethics and Protocols, Knowledge Keepers in Research, and the Cultural Competency Knowledge Bundle. And so together, the pathway aims to enhance the knowledge and awareness of racial biases, Indigenous voices and stories, the impact of colonization on Indigenous health, and culturally safe health research practices. One of the sections of this is the land acknowledgement webinar series is called Supporting Each Other's Journeys. So it's a 4-part series. There's also a little workbook that goes along with it. So it's intended to acknowledge the power of Indigenous resilience and to understand, help the learners to understand the purpose, history, and context of offering a land acknowledgement. And it offers the participants the opportunity to embark on their journey towards reconciliation by helping them develop their own personalized land acknowledgement that can demonstrate the connection between their relationship to the land. The Indigenous Research Ethics and Protocols is a 3-part webinar series examining the ethical principles of engagement of Indigenous peoples in health research, and that's hosted by Dr. Malcolm King. There is also the Knowledge Keepers in Research, which is a virtual guidebook, and there's also a video series that's going to be coming out in May for that one. And that one aims to create a culturally safe space for researchers, patient partners, and knowledge keepers to come together and work in research. It encourages researchers to honor the various forms of knowledge alongside Indigenous knowledge keepers and help them translate those teachings into practice. And finally, the Cultural Competency Knowledge Bundle is just a self-directed resource page with lots of different, it's multimedia. There's book resources, videos, all sorts of websites to support a user on their cultural competency journey. And so this bundle is a living document. So whatever's on there now, you know, more and more is going to be added as more gets distributed throughout. And as we said, like a lot of these are just for all peoples. These are resources that would be helpful to the clinicians and researchers, the patient partners, administrators. These are not just for the patient partners. This is helping everybody learn so that we can have the capacity to better serve the people that they are trying to help, which is the patients. So the Canadian Nephrology Trials Network, CNTN, is part of the Cansolve CKD network. It was incorporated into Cansolve when Cansolve was created. And so I lead that part. Last year, I hosted a series of webinars entitled Patients as Researchers to give people insight into how a research idea can be turned into a research question. So people may not think they have a research question, but they notice something in their care being like, why can't this be done better? Why does it have to be like this? Why am I doing these extra tests? Things that you think about but may not understand are questions that can be put into a proposal and researched and figured out. Maybe there is a better way to do something. Ultimately, CNTN would love to support a patient partner in bringing their idea to life. And so this webinar series was kind of the first step in trying to encourage people to come forward with their questions. The other thing here is the patient partners and peer review. So I know that the PFDs at CDTRP, as well as the Kidney Foundation of Canada, are involved in peer review. CNTN started incorporating patient reviewers in 2019, and I know the CHR and other funding agencies have started incorporating those with lived experience in the peer review process. And so after hosting a peer review training session for CNTN, we realized that this is an educational area that is lacking. CIHR has a learning module, but that's very specific to them. And there wasn't anything that just grounds people in the, people who are 100% research naive. You just pull them off the street and they've never taken part in research, or they just heard about it in the news. Pull them off the street and say, this is the foundational information that you would need to know to take part. So together with CDTRP and the Kidney Foundation of Canada, we're currently developing an online module that we hope will be ready by May of this year. And this will be an introduction to peer review that is not disease specific. So we're hoping that this will be taken up by people across the country in all disease areas. We're hoping that it encourages the learners to seek out opportunities to be involved in peer review and to go to their networks, their universities, and say, I've learned about peer review, and I think it'd be really important that you start including us as members of this review. So high hopes for this one. We're working on it right now. I see Sandra is here and Hans, and they're both part of the working group. So they're helping me work through all the content. And so we're really excited. And I'm sure you'll hear more about that, later on in the year. Melanie?
Thank you. So Kidneylink is an additional resource that has been developed just out of a need to really link up patients who are interested in participating in research and researchers. So this is an online platform, and it's actually described as a hub for everything research. So the idea was to kind of develop this this linkage, this system to connect researchers and patients, but it's also used to promote nephrology research and patient engagement events and training sessions. So it's kind of been envisioned as this one-stop shop for everything related to kidney research and patient engagement in kidney research in Canada. So this is obviously specific to kidney research, but it is a great resource and a great example of a resource that maybe could be adopted and adapted for your needs. So we're currently actually upgrading this website, but you can still see it and see what kind of opportunities are there. And right now, we're just going through this iterative process with a working group that includes patient partners and identifying, how we can improve this and what kinds of aspects of the Kidneylink website could be made to be more patient-friendly, and or what patients would like to see on the Kidneylink website. So as a result of that, some of the things that have come up are, specific things like what is involved, what would I be involved in, or what's the time commitment? And this kind of like these really important questions if patients are kind of interested in becoming involved in research, but not really sure what's involved. So this Kidneylink website is a great resource for giving that. Giving all the information and also for linking. And then, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Kidneylink.
We're just going to play a short video, just a minute or so. Let me just make sure.
All patient partners, regardless how experienced they are, really
Sorry about that.
have something to offer to the research experience or the research process.
Everyone has their strengths and has their own perspective, and the product is much richer when you have all those perspectives being considered.
We're building relationships between patients and caregivers and renal specialists and researchers, and building the relationship and building the trust is the most important part of any type of a project.
Nobody's expecting patients to become researchers, and they aren't expecting them to become nephrologists either. What is required for a patient is to be curious, is to want to learn.
Ask lots of questions, get involved, don't be afraid to use your voice. Express what you want to do, because they're there to support you every step of the way.
It's changed the way that I do research. It used to be the researcher thought this is the most important question and we'll do it and we'll publish it and that's the end. And we've come to appreciate that. Really focusing on the priority of patients is the optimal way to do research.
Cansolve has given me my voice. IPERC has given me my voice, and I think that people really need to tell their stories and really need to feel that they're being heard.
So, as the patients, so that was Hans and Arlene and Kathy Woods that alluded to in this video, people with lived experience, are more than just can be more than just research participants. And they don't have to have a PhD to have a say and to be able to actively contribute to the work that's being done that will ultimately affect either them or other people who come after them who have who are living through the same thing. And so, you know, this quote from Mary Bocage, I think our voices are really important in research because we bring our lived experience. We also bring our transferable skills that we brought into research projects. And that's something that Melanie has alluded to, and that we talk about a lot, is that, you know, people who are joining as patient partners, yes, you have that lived experience, which makes you an expert in and gives you insight that perhaps the clinicians don't see and don't think of at first glance, that you can bring to their attention. But also just by virtue of your work and your experience in your life, you have other ways to contribute to the research. And I think that that's really important and something that we can push forward as we try to incorporate you know, patients into all the aspects of what we do. You know, we have people who are in business and who like to, you know, learn about and keep up with the financials of the network. We have people who are more involved in, you know, the communications and how things are like distributed. We have some people who are very active on social media and are sharing our things and sharing the gospel of patient-oriented research with all of those around them. And I think that just the more that we can encourage everybody within who does have experience and who wants to get involved, I would just say, find a way, ask around and see how you can help contribute to, you know, increasing the knowledge that is being developed and is being shared. That's all we have for you today. I again want to encourage you all to visit Cansolve CKD or follow us on Twitter and sing with CNTN. All of our resources are available on the website, but also when you sign up for our newsletter, you'll hear about new up and coming webinars. As I said, not all of the webinars are kidney related. A lot of them are patient-oriented research. And as we go into phase 2, which is more about implementation, some of it will be about implementation science, which is something that many of us, including myself, are learning for the first time. And so I would encourage you all to join in whenever possible. But yeah, thanks for having us. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I just wanted to also open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, we can try our best to answer those.
I'll start off if I may.
Yep.
As a patient wanting to get involved with research, and I think you mentioned a one-stop shop resource, where would I go to find out what research projects are available?
So that would be on kidneylink.ca. So you can go there. When you, we also have like an email blast, so it comes out every other week with some new opportunities. But Kidneylink is really the site where we direct everybody to go. And I will just say that, like, Kidneylink is unique to us. However, there is one here in BC called BC Reach. For those of you maybe here who are from BC, they have research opportunities to participate. There are and some to be involved in patient engagement. And as well as in Saskatchewan, I know they have Skipper, which is the Saskatchewan Center for Patient-Oriented Research. They also have a board where they're trying to do the same thing as Kidneylink, but that's within Saskatchewan. And Diabetes Action Canada also is developing one. So these are becoming more popular and more prevalent. So I would say that depending on where you live, check out in your own province or within your own disease network and see if they have something similar. And if not, maybe advocate to develop your own.
Very good. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions? You can unmute yourself and speak.
I have a question. I have a question for Melanie. Since you've sent me your bio, I've had a question on my mind. What does a medical anthropologist do?
Sure. So my background, I'll try to do my elevator pitch version, but basically looking at the social side of health. So that was my area, was looking at really the social determinants of health and disease. And yeah, that's the short version.
All right.
but a lot of participatory action research and a lot of cooperative-based inquiry methods. So using, involving community members, patients, multiple stakeholders in the research, and just looking at the social determinants of health. Sunny?
I'll jump in. I think Charles asked this question himself about, where would someone look? Maybe I'll flip the question around. What would be the easiest way to, to have patients, partners, and families who want to be engaged, even get to a website? What would be the easiest way? Most people don't even know research is happening, let alone then finding which research projects. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and you know what? That's why we created Kidneylink, because there was a survey done here in BC by one of the support unit before, and people said they wanted to take part in research, they want to be a participant, but they didn't know how to find it. Like, they didn't know where to look. And I think that was the impetus for creating BC Reach, but also for us for Kidneylink. And I think it's really hard, because I feel like I come from a very academic background in terms of like the places I've worked, where there's always been a lot of research. So I think if you are coming from a more academic center, I would definitely ask your physician if they know of somebody who's doing research, or if they know where research is being done in your area. If it's a community researcher, it can be a little more difficult, but a good start might be looking at your local university. And see, all of these things are hard as well, because people don't know to look to. I'm saying this as somebody who's worked in research.
You don't know. Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. So I think,
Correct.
A lot of part of Kidneylink has been trying to get the word out and trying to get posters into clinics or community dialysis units, things like that, because people just don't know. And I think it's really hard. And I think that's the message we're trying to get out more than anything, is connect with your physician and ask them.
So Alicia, is there a role of that's exactly what I'm getting at. Once you know to ask the question, maybe it's easier, right? But I'm assuming people go into the clinic with their physician and don't even know. Yeah. Is there a model where we might get every physician to bring it up, at a certain visit? We don't want to add stress and burden to, recovery or, but like, is there a way that every visit has that question, rather than even a poster on the wall, that's part of the standard process? And when you reflect on cancer care, every treatment is part of a research project. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but we could get near there.
And it's also trying to figure out where along the flow are you going to bring it up? Because, a lot of things we've heard too is that it's stressful. You come in somewhere, you find out that your kidneys aren't working like they're supposed to. And, you have to be on these new medications. You're faced with possible dialysis, possible transplant. It can be a very stressful environment. So do we add one more thing? By the way, do you want to do research? So it's also finding out where to put it into that flow. But something that we've talked about, just haven't had the capacity yet to implement, is this idea of research ambassadors. So there's the transplant ambassadors program in Ontario that's been very, very successful. And so what they do is they have donors and recipients in the clinics there to talk to people about their experience. And I think that could be something that we could also do for research, having these people who have been patient partners, who have been part of a research, and just being in the clinic and there to answer questions, whatever they may be. And then that could be also it's a way to be that it's taking a burden off of the healthcare system, because it's not asking the doctor or the nurse or the unit clerk to do anything, but it's also coming from a peer, somebody who has already been through this. I think kind of lends itself to being more of a conversation and a little bit easier for people to accept than coming from somebody in the medical profession. So that is like a more long-term goal, but I think that would be an easier way to get through to that, trying to let people know that this is happening and you can be a part of it.
I just want to chime in too that these are great ideas, and I agree, Alicia, having a transplant or a research ambassador is a great way of getting the knowledge out there. It's hard to come from the clinician point of view because there could be like ethical issues around kind of a power over relationship. Patients might feel more obligated to say, yes, I'll be involved in research if it's coming from their own doctor, and it may not be quite as ethical as coming from their own interest. So that's just something to consider. But I'll move on. Sandra, you've had your hand up a little while.
Yeah, I feel like Alicia and Sunny are in my head. This is all I've been talking about. Like, well, today we had a meeting on it. So first of all, right off the press, CDTRP does have a platform for matching patients and researchers. Awesome. And it's in the chat. Patricia put it in. It's really great. I'm working in Ontario with OSU, Ontario Spore Support Unit, and we just had one of our many meetings about research matching platforms. And when you said BC Reach, like that's one of the best ones I've seen, and the Saskatchewan one, right? So for CDTRP, yeah, definitely anything to do with transplant and disease-related issues that end up in, transplant would be perfect for CDTRP. Talking about what Sunny was talking about, I had a long conversation with Atul Kumar here in Toronto, because I'm trying to explain to him that any teaching hospital, which would be the same as Sunny and McGill and McMaster, and I don't know if Ruth is from working with Maureen, but any of the hospitals out there that are teaching hospitals, you have to create an environment that anyone who walks in there knows that it's a research hospital and it's a teaching hospital. So to set the expectation that anytime during your visit, you're going to be asked, right? And I appreciate what you said, Melanie, but I think that there's too much protection to patients about when is the right time to consult and when is the right time to give this information. And I keep hearing, well, we're too overwhelmed. We're already in it. We're as in deep as we can get. And to me is when I'm first meeting the team, that's when I want to be told, look at, like, this is a training hospital. Don't be surprised that during any of your appointments, someone might come up to you. Because I remember being in the hospital, I mean, it's 26 years ago, but being in my hospital bed over the time before my transplant, and people would come in and say, can I interview you? I'm a research student. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But I think if people were prepared for that, their rate of people actually doing it would be higher. And some of the research that we're trying to do, I also think that if the patient was told about it at the beginning, then when they're further closer to the end of their disease, when they're not functioning as much, they'll have a better understanding. So these are all things that we can work with within our partnerships within hospitals and researchers, but it's all things that, people are thinking about. I love the idea of research ambassadors. I didn't use that word. I just said champions. I said that we need people, because there was a woman that was on our call today, and the camera was off, but she said, for someone like me, doesn't fit in someone doing. So I'm thinking maybe she was speaking from a minority, situation. So I was thinking, well, you're here, then it all comes into community engagement. If you're in a community that you don't think is being well representative, then you could be the champion to go to that community and go, you know what? There's a whole bunch of white women that were at this meeting, and they're all retired, and they're all bringing the same information. It's not my experience. How about you? And they go, no, that's not my experience. Well, how about we go and join the tables and be there? And I use the expression of white women because the Canadian Patient Partner survey results that were sent out, 84% of white women that are usually retired and well-educated are the current patient partners. Anyway,
yeah, that's our
thank you
experience
for
too.
the opportunity to bring that up. Thank you.
I'm glad we're all on the same page, Sandra.
You are. You're in my head.
That's great.
Yeah, I had my hand up. Two points. One to Sunny. I think it's great that Patricia put that link up for the patient partners to sign up to be potential research partners. But I think on the flip side, clinicians also need that, so that the answer to all life's problems, when their CIHR grant application says you must have patient partners on your application, that the answer isn't always Sean, Donna, Hans, and Sandra. Exactly like Sandra said, we need a broader mix of people out there. You know, many of us are getting asked 8, 10, 15 or more times a year to be part of these projects. And you're like, you know what, there's got to be more people. I mean, yes, I've received a living donation, or yes, I'm a kidney patient, but what you really need is a pediatric mom or that kind of a thing. So I think there is a total need to grow that type of a resource that CDTRP has started there. And I think all of the institutes across the country can definitely help in supporting that. And conversely, I just wanted to put a plug in for the land acknowledgement series. It was excellent. I've probably shared that at least 24 times when I'm doing committee management or things like that. And we have requirements for people to open calls with land acknowledgements and things like that. I much prefer to see people, when people have personalized their own journey through the land acknowledgement learning. I think the session with Mary and Dr. Garg was absolutely fantastic. So just a huge plug for that. And I would continue to encourage everyone who hasn't seen it to take that and develop your own land acknowledgement.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I'll be sure to give Craig that feedback. I'm sure he'll be very pleased. It was a definite work of a labor of love, and it turned out amazingly well. So pleased that you liked it.
I also have Mary on speed dial, so I mean, I have I'm ace in the hole there as well. But.
Yeah, exactly. Look at us, right on time.
Are there any last questions before we wrap it up? Or comments?
All righty, then I'll take us home. First of all, thank you, ladies, for that great presentation. I especially like the plugs for Kidneylink and TAP. All with both, so good job on that. Since time's about up, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for the questions and comments throughout today's presentations. Alicia and Melanie, on behalf of CDTRP, thank you again for presenting. If anyone has additional questions, comments, or suggested topics and speakers, contact Erica Kathy Croft at ekcroft@cdtrp.ca. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Great job.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.